tonight. I appreciate everybody coming out to hear the candidates tonight. I wanted to let you know from the beginning that I am a father. I have 2 children. I have 4 stepchildren. And as of yesterday morning, I have 6 grandchildren, all of whom I'm very proud of. I was born and raised in Maryland. I grew up in the Eastport section of Anne Arundel County. Went to Eastport Elementary School, went to Tyler Heights, went to Annapolis Junior and Senior High School. And at the young age of 19, I went on the Anne Arundel County Police Department. And for the next 22 years, I did a career with the police department that took me through a variety of positions, a lot of investigations and undercover narcotics and vice crimes and things like that. And that led me to homicide investigation, and then eventually I became the chief of the Anne Arundel County Police Homicide Unit. And during the later years before I retired, I became the adjutant to the chief of police, where I was helping him run the police department. And the circumstances are that I believe that my extensive experience of the police department, combined with, and I will tell you, when I was 19, I had no college education. I did all my school, my Anne Arundel Community College, my University of Maryland, my University of Baltimore. I did all at night while I was raising a young family and while I was working full-time as a police officer. So I know what it's like to pay your dues. I know what it's like to be in the trenches. I know what it's like to dig hard to reach a goal that you've wanted all your life. The last 25 years I've been protecting or trying to protect or trying to assist people in a variety of different cases. Criminal cases, medical malpractice cases, personal injury cases, a multitude of different things. I have a very successful practice in the Annapolis Town Center, which I very much enjoy, but I would like to have the opportunity to take the experience that I have and share it with the citizens of Anne Arundel County and give back and become a member of the Anne Arundel County Circuit Court bench, a bench that I have a great deal of respect for, and I would like to have the opportunity to participate with them, perhaps to help educate my fellow judges, if I get there, on the types of things that they may not know, because I'm not saying I'm superiorly qualified, I'm saying that I'm uniquely qualified because of my law enforcement experience. And I ask for your consideration on April the 26th to help me get on the bench. Thank you.
And I'm here tonight to ask you to vote for not just myself, but my fellow sitting judges who are judges on the Circuit Court for Anne Arundel County. I live in Smyrna Park with my wife and my 2 grown kids. I was born in Baltimore and came down here when I saw the light in the 1980s. My first job in the law was as an assistant state's attorney in Baltimore City, where I handled many high-level felonies. I was in the sexual offense task force handling those kinds of cases. And I was at that office's first and only special assistant state's attorney for narcotics investigation, where I headed up long-term investigations that resulted in the end of several significant drug organizations in East and West Baltimore. I started my own practice in Anne Arundel County in the late 80s, early 90s. I was in Empire Towers for many years, and I had a particularly broad general practice. I'm sort of an old-fashioned throwback in that regard. There's virtually no area of the law that I meet here on the bench now that I didn't encounter as a lawyer in private practice. And that's exactly what we want as Circuit Court judges. We want judges that are generalists, that have that broad-based experience. But beyond that, I and my fellow judges were vetted by bar associations, by the Judicial Nominating Commission, and by the governor before we were appointed. And it's not just the technical knowledge that we bring to the job. It was also our community involvement. We are fully rounded people who have always been and consistently will be involved in our communities. And that's what makes us suitable to continue in office. Thank you.
I'm Stacey McCormick, and I'm usually loud, so I will try not to hold this up too close. So I was born and raised here in Anne Arundel County. I was actually born at Kimbrough Army Hospital when they were still delivering babies. Grew up on Fort Meade, just moved in several places. My dad was military and retired after 35 years in the service. I have lived here in Smyrna Park currently. I've raised my 2 children. I have a 19 and a 17 Arundel, one who's still a senior at Severna Park High School, the other one who's a sophomore in college, and we live right down the street in Severna Park in Berrywood. Been a part of this community ever since the first day we moved in. I have coached lacrosse teams for Green Hornets. I survived Green Hornets 10 years from age 5 to 15, all girls lacrosse teams, so I get a double bonus for that. I've watched them now, they're all seniors and graduating, so that's nice to be. As for my legal practice, I got married in law school, had my first son early on and stayed at the clerkship. I worked for a court of special appeals judge for 3 years. Having done that for 3 years and staying with him, it was a natural progression for me to go into appellate practice and appellate law, and started my career with the public defender's office in the appellate division. That's something unique that you're going to hear from me, that a lot of my sitting judges as well as the candidate does not have, and I'll explain how I think that kind of gives me an edge as we go on. I did stay with the public defender's office. I wanted to do trial work, was something I always wanted to do, was to get in the courtroom, and transferred down here to Anne Arundel County. My former boss is in the back row over there. It was a surprise to him when I came down from appellate and stayed there with him and did trial work and enjoyed that, doing felony trials. I then went on and did some private practice. I went on my own this last year before being appointed by Governor Hogan in December of this year. And as Judge Clavin said, we went through a very long, extensive process. We were vetted, we went through multiple bars, nominating commissions, we went through the Judicial Nominating Commission, and we're very qualified, and I'm honored to be selected by Governor Hogan and would be honored to continue.
Good evening. I am Judge Donna Schaefer, and I have the honor, along with Judge McCormick, of being one of Governor Hogan's first judicial appointments in Anne Arundel County. We're not really sure who was first. He appointed us both on the same day and had us both sit by our phones from 11:30 till 3 that day, and I'm not sure who got the phone call first, but in any event, we were both thrilled and honored to do that. Prior to my appointment, I began my legal career with the University of Maryland Law School, graduated with honor at the University of Maryland Law School. I then took a clerkship on the Maryland Court of Appeals for the Honorable James F. Couch, and I clerked for him for a year. At that point, I had grown up on the Eastern Shore. I was native at the Eastern Shore. I went to law school at the University of Maryland, and I clerked. When I clerked, it was in Prince George's County, but we came to Anne Arundel County, to Annapolis, for our hearings for 1 week each month. So I lived in Annapolis during that time, and I fell in love with Anne Arundel County, and that was 1985, and so I've lived in Anne Arundel County ever since. I decided that I wanted to stay in Anne Arundel County, so I joined a law firm in 1986, Counsel Arundel, Coswell and Nolan. At the time, I was the first female attorney at the firm, and believe it or not, in 1985 and 1986, that was really an issue. So I was kind of a groundbreaker. They hired me. I stayed there. I practiced there for 29 years before I had the honor of being appointed to the bench. My practice focused primarily on family law. So my background is a little bit different than my colleagues. I basically handled divorces, adoptions, custody, anything dealing with family law, which is a huge part of the circuit court docket. It's 34% of the docket. So it's the largest single component of the circuit court docket is family law. So once I was appointed, now I've been appointed in December, I've been hearing cases since January. I'm really enjoying it, and I'm hoping that the citizens of Anne Arundel County will allow me to continue as a circuit court judge. Thank you.
I'm Patty Vitale, so a lot of people know me. Usually when I'm standing on the stage, of course, I'm talking more about why I'm running for a particular political office. So this is a little different for me, in the hopes that most of you know some things, and maybe I can tell you a few things you don't know about me. So everybody knows that I've lived here in Anne Arundel County. I raised my family here in Anne Arundel County, and as Nathan made a comment, I'm a product of the public school system. As you heard from the judges, each one of us comes to ask you for our vote, starting with early voting on the 14th, and taking us to the 26th of April, when the election day will occur. But here's what I'd like you to know a little bit about me. My path is one that's well known to just about everybody here. I was a practicing attorney for 26 years here in Anne Arundel County, and I'm married to an County firemen, and a lot of you know my 19-year-old son, who we're very proud is now at Valley Forge Military College, on his way to provide, again, additional service to the community in the way that he's very excited to do. But what most of you may not know is that when I began to practice law, or just before I began to practice law, I had an opportunity to clerk for a judge in Baltimore City, and at that time was involved in what I consider to be a horrendous criminal case. I'm very excited about that chance. You know, if you spend some time watching television these days, nobody ever wants to watch a contract case. They want to watch the murder trial. They want to watch, you know, the more exciting things. And as a brand new attorney, I was so excited at the opportunity to do that. I came to Annapolis and clerked again for trial court judge in Annapolis. So I feel as if I've returned to the same place where I started. As a trial court law clerk, what was most exciting to me was that opportunity to advocate for a client, to talk to the judge about why you believed your positions were correct, why you thought your client should win. What you'll hear, and hopefully I'll explain a little bit later though, is how my practice has evolved and how my life has evolved from one of a true advocate for the community to now as a member of the benches still serving the community. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Well, great. Welcome to everyone here tonight. It's wonderful to have you all here. We spent a lot of time working on this, so it's great to have the support and participation. And welcome to all of you on behalf of Suburban Park Republican Women's Club and all the other Anne Arundel County clubs. It's great to have you all here. Pleasure listening. And I have question number 1 for you. Why do you want to serve or continue to serve as a judge on the Anne Arundel County Circuit Court bench?
The question, I'd like to serve on the circuit court bench because I'd like to, one, give back to the community. This community has done great things for me during the course of the time that I was a police officer and I was working my way, struggling to get through law school. The police department was on my side. They assisted me in helping to reach a schedule that I could work so that I could get there. And they've been very supportive of me. And of course, I spent 22 years in public service. I enjoy public service. I'd like to get back into public service. I believe that with my experience, which again, I think is unique, and in fact more unique than any other current, even current sitting circuit court judge. I mean, I've actually been to the crime scenes. I've actually gone to the parents and told them, the parents, that their child isn't coming home. I've been up to the autopsies in Baltimore. I've done all of that kind of stuff. And I think under the circumstances that it would be great to have a judge with a background in law enforcement that actually knows what the victims feel when they lose a loved one. They actually know that they've been through the process and they can relate very well to the pain that they're feeling when they come into the courtroom. All too often, sometimes we think that maybe judges are so detached that they don't really know the effect that a crime maybe has had on their lives. And the bottom line is, I know the effects that the crime has had. I've been there. And I think it would be a great rounding out of the circuit court bench to put somebody with my experience on the bench. Thank you.
I want to continue as one of your circuit court judges because it's the best way that I know within my training and experience to continue to serve my community. This is the community my children grew up in. This is the community that my family decided to put our roots down in. And every day when I go to work, I'm mindful of the fact that I'm there to serve my community. As I told you, I was a prosecutor for a long time in Baltimore City before I started to practice in Anne Arundel County. And I learned from that experience that we need to be mindful of, in fact, the victims of crime. I spent years speaking for victims of crime that had no other voice. And that's something that we have to do. We have to give fair trials, meaningful trials, both civilly and criminally. And we have to be mindful that we're here to protect our community.
I too am seeking to continue in my position as a judge on the circuit court bench to serve the community, a community that I've been a part of and continue to be a part of. And my experience is unique as well in a way. I'm very familiar with the criminal justice system, being a public defender for 15 years, representing all those individuals to ensure that people get a fair trial. That is also a crux of the system. in light of that, I've dealt with victims and understand what goes forward in that. And I'm married to a police officer who served our country, served for 21 years. So I understand the issues that go into police officers that they face on a daily basis, especially right now, and nothing has hit harder in my home than the situation that we have. I think my experience and temperament is one that can help serve this community, and I want to continue to do that.
As a trial attorney for 29 years, I tried hundreds and hundreds of cases, and as I indicated, my focus was family law, so the vast majority of my cases were family law cases. In a family law case, the court's job is to determine what's in the best interest of the child. As a trial attorney, your job is to advocate for your client, your side of the case. After doing it for so many years and for so long, I came to the point in my career where I didn't want to advocate so much for one side or the other. I wanted to do the right thing in the case. I wanted to put myself in a position where I could help people by making the right decision. And so how can I do that? So I applied to be a judge. For the first time, I applied. Last year was the first time I ever applied. And I had to get to that point in my career where I was ready to do that. And so I thought, the way that I can best accomplish this and help the community best is to go to court each day and do what I think is right for the children and for the litigants who come before me. Thank you.
As I said, public service is certainly not new to me. The opportunity, though, to sit on the bench came early on. Maybe I should do Judge McCormick and pull it out here. My opportunity to serve on the bench was solidified actually after I got onto the bench. One of the things that I noticed about Anne Arundel County is, in addition to the family law, in addition to the criminal cases that come before us, there's an awful lot of matters that come from the Board of Appeals. Matters that come involving zoning, matters that come involving the environment, house construction, areas of law that really are focused on the Anne Arundel County Code, an area that none of the other members of the bench had had a lot of experience with. My time on the county council and the opportunity to help create the laws that we're now asked to interpret, and I say interpret as opposed to make them, in and of itself solidified my desire to be on the bench. I've enjoyed my year plus since swearing in, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to do that again, and I hope that you'll return me to that chance, so thank you.
Are you here? So my name is Mark Angel. I'm the Vice President of the District 32 Republican Club. We meet on the first Tuesday of every month at Severn United Methodist Church. I invite everybody to come and check us out. We're a growing group, and we see how good everybody comes and does it down in the other parts of Anne Arundel County. We hope to get some of that vibe up in our way. Well, today, for your question for you is, the Maryland Constitution prescribes that judges are to be most distinguished for integrity, wisdom, and sound legal knowledge. What experiences as an attorney do you feel have prepared you to meet these qualifications to serve as a judge, and why?
My background in private practice on such a broad-based general practice is what best prepared me. Whether it's criminal or it's civil cases or real estate foreclosure cases, injunctions, landlord-tenant, although we only get those on appeal occasionally. The wide range of matters that we handle at circuit court were not a surprise to me. I was able to hit the ground running a year ago when I got on the bench and handle those cases, and I think I can handle them with a level of confidence based on 37 years of legal experience prior to reaching the bench. I've always prided myself with being an upstanding, truthful person. I was an Eagle Scout. I'm the father of an Eagle Scout as well. And I think, in fact, the wide range background I had, it sounds hokey, came from all those little merit badges that I earned as a kid. They told me not to be afraid to learn new things, not to have a broad base of experience, not to have a broad base of knowledge. And I think that instilled in me a sense of country, a sense of integrity, and a sense of intellectual curiosity that stays with me to this day.
I'm giving him a hard time for throwing Eagle Scout in right before I come up. I think my experience as an appellate attorney makes me unique and makes me extremely well qualified for this position. As an appellate attorney, my job for almost 10 years was to go through and read trials throughout the entire state of Maryland and determine whether individuals got a fair trial. The question was not whether they were guilty or innocent, whether the attorneys did a good job. The question was whether the trial court made a mistake and whether the trial court erred. And it is in that time that I'm reading hundreds and hundreds of trials. I got to see judges who did it right, and I got to see judges who did it wrong. I know that a job as a judge is to be fair and impartial, to be a referee, to call the balls and the strikes. And that's what I was able to do and see. I then wanted to go practice that, in trial and be in the trenches, and had years of doing that as well. And I think it provides me a very different perspective than a lot of people on the bench currently, and certainly our candidate. And I would bring that, I have that perspective to bring into the courtroom every day and to treat everybody fairly and ensure that fair trials are given in my courtroom.
I spent a long time in practice building my reputation and evidencing the qualities that I thought made for high integrity in the practice of law. I was always made efforts to be fair and reasonable and courteous to opposing counsel as well as the litigants. And I think I did very successfully build a very good reputation. As far as temperament is concerned, I dealt with all kinds of clients in all kinds of very stressful situations, and always tried to bring a level of calm and reasonableness to the situation. And I think that practice and the very highly emotionally charged practice that I had has stood me in good stead in coming to the bench. And I've tried to keep that same calm demeanor on the bench, and also always tried to be reasonable and apply common sense. As far as the intellect is concerned, I have vast experience in all kinds of law. When I originally started, I did insurance defense, automobile accidents, and a lot of real estate work and some land use. So again, I think I have a broad range of experience. Thank you.
As a member of a small practice here in Anne Arundel County, and I've had the opportunity of being involved with 3 different practices. My first practice involved a lot of attorney malpractice. Thankfully not mine, but I represented those who had been represented by attorneys that had not done proper representation for the individuals that they had been hired to work for. That was a huge eye-opening in terms of how one might want to carry themselves in court, how might one practice from the very basics, meaning the introduction of an individual who would come into your courtroom. After that, I had 18 years of experience with a childhood friend, actually somebody I went to junior high school with here in Summer Park. And we practiced together in Glen Burnie with 3 other individuals. And again, as a small practitioner, you handle a lot of different things. Not only was I in court, in the trial court, but I also had the opportunity to participate as a mediator. And I found that during that time, the opportunity to sit and to listen to both sides of a circumstance, and then to help others facilitate as opposed to make a decision in and of itself are the unique qualities that I bring to the bench. Thank you.
Thank you. I too also have some considerable amount of experience handling a particular case that comes to mind is a case that I handled from a trial board level where the decision was against me all the way to the circuit court, all the way to the Court of Special Appeals, which I won. The case was sent back. It was reheard at the trial board level again. It was sent back to the Court of Special Appeals again. I lost the second time, and the Court of Appeals denied cert in that case. But the point of all of it is that in that process, I was diligent in fighting for the rights of my client. It was an experience to learn the processes of the appellate procedures in Maryland, and it was a great opportunity. It gave me a lot of experience knowing what to do and when to do it in the court process. And I think it would be a great benefit to me if I were to become a member of the circuit court. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Maureen Carr-York. I'm Vice President of the Elephant Club, and we're one of the sponsoring clubs this evening. We meet on the first Thursday of the month for breakfast at our Shepherd Lutheran Church here in Severna Park, and on the third Thursday of the month for pizza and politics, and all are welcome. We'd love to see you all come by, candidates and good Republicans alike. We even let a few other folks in from time to time. This evening, the question that the Elephant Club is presenting is, please discuss a case that you handled either as an attorney or judge that highlights your judicial temperament or showed your qualifications to be a judge.
I think just about every day that you come into the courtroom, and I think it shows my judicial temperament. One of the things that is unique in circuit court is we don't have set rotations. So every day you can be handling something different, from a criminal case to a family law case, to a contract dispute and things of that nature. We're often dealt with situations where only one side is represented or neither side is represented. And certainly there needs a lot of patience that goes into that, a lot of understanding to make sure that everyone that comes in my courtroom is heard, feels like they've been heard. Everyone who walks in, that is their biggest day in that courtroom, and where it might just feel like, some people might think it's just another day to us. To treat every case that comes in as it's the most important case, because it's the most important case to them in the courtroom, is something that I deal with every day.
A case that comes to mind that reflects my personality, I don't know if you say judicial temperament, but was a case where I was in practice and a gentleman came to me and said that his wife had disappeared and had taken their 2-year-old child, and we didn't know where she was, and we didn't know what to do. So he also didn't have any money. But what I ended up doing is I said, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We ended up finding out that the mother had taken the child to Washington State, and he was devastated. And he was just devastated. It's the only word I can think of. I kept encouraging him, don't worry, we will get it, we'll figure it out. We did. We ended up getting the child. We had an ancillary case in Washington State. We got a court order. We got the child back from Washington State. We had a custody trial, and he prevailed. And that was 18 years ago. The child is now 20 years old. For the last 18 years, that client has come back every year at Christmas and brought me a Christmas tree ornament from my tree. I now have 18 ornaments, and every year I think of that, and it just shows me that how much importance you can make and how important you can be in one person's life. So thank you.
I'm not sure it's as an attorney that taught me judicial temperament. Anybody who's watched a county council meeting or a hearing in the House of Delegates knows that it takes an awful lot of temperament to be able to handle the various issues that we have to deal with as legislators. And I often reflect on the mix between being a legislator and being as an attorney. As an attorney, the type of practice that I had meant that we were in court frequently. And so you have highly charged individuals and highly charged attorneys. The emotions run high when you're talking about, where are the children going to go home tonight? How come I'm not necessarily going to get to see my children as often as I used to? Those issues in and of themselves in the family law practice talk a lot about temperament. But I think the most important piece, at least in my practice in the past, was during the time early in my career when I represented individuals who felt as if there was nobody else to help them. And my desire to go into public service focused on that as well. And that was an individual who felt that nobody was there to hear them, and therefore nobody there to help them. And a combination of both my life as an attorney as well as my life as a public servant has taught me that every issue is an important issue to the people that are seeking help.
A case that comes to mind for me, I represented a young man who had given an engagement ring to a young lady they were going to marry. It was like a $13,000 ring. She accepted it, and then shortly thereafter broke off the engagement and then tried to keep the ring. And of course he wanted it back, and the law in Maryland is, of course, that it's a conditional gift and it should have come back to him. Anyway, in the district court, the judge told me that I was wrong and that this was not a conditional gift, it was unconditional, and therefore he wasn't going to find in favor of my client. My client was very upset. I didn't get upset. I knew what the law was. I did what I should have done. I filed my appropriate appeal. I went to the circuit court. I argued the case in front of the circuit court judge. The circuit court judge agreed with me and ordered the return of the ring, because that's the law in Maryland. The point is that the temperament that it demonstrates is that you don't get mad when a judge makes a ruling that's not in your favor. You do what you're supposed to do. You go through the appropriate process, you file the appropriate appeal, and you have the cause of action taken up in the right court. Thank you.
I pride myself on being a pretty level guy that people can't really push my buttons. I'm very proud of the fact that framed on the wall of my chambers is a note from a juror in one of the very first trials I ever tried, and it said, "You're so much nicer than Judge Judy." But, you know, I remember as a lawyer practicing before good and less good judges, and I remember so many times saying, why is that judge so miserable sitting up there? You know, we would say, did he have his coffee this morning? Why is he scowling at everybody? If you're going to do this work, you need to understand the flawed nature of human beings. You need to know that people that come before you aren't at their best, they're at their worst. And it's that that drives me forward every day, to understand that, to have the empathy to deal with people in such a manner that they're in a stressful, high-stakes situation, and we have to have the understanding to do that as well.
Anyways, my name is Angelette Avilez. I'm representing the West County Republican Club that meets on the third Wednesday of each month, except for today. And we meet in various locations in Watchapel, which is in Gables. My question is, as many of us know, many cases that come before the circuit court are serious criminal matters. In some of these cases, you will decide a person's guilt or innocence. In others, a jury will decide. However, in either situation, you will have the responsibility of fashioning an appropriate sentence. Please explain your judicial philosophy as it relates to sentencing in criminal matters.
My philosophy on this is very simple. If you're at the sentencing stage, that means there's been a conviction. As the judge, my job is to make sure that the crime doesn't happen again. That's either through rehabilitation or incarceration. So I have to look at each individual case and the situation in that case and determine what will most effectively protect the victims and protect the community from the criminal. Obviously, if it's a crime that does not warrant a long sentence or a long sentence is not available, then you want to look at, that individual is going to return to the community, so you want to look at whatever kind of rehabilitation alternatives or options are available. But again, my highest priority is to protect the victim and protect the community from the criminal.
One of the advantages of being a sitting judge, of course, is we've had an opportunity to deal with that circumstance already. And many people know that in Maryland we have a series of sentencing guidelines, and the Maryland sentencing guidelines, of course, give you a range that take into consideration what's been happening all through the state in terms of that particular crime with a typical type defendant who has had that many either new charges, prior charges, in coming up with and fashioning a sentence. With regard to the philosophy of sentencing, I've had that tested a few times since I've gotten onto the bench. People questioning whether or not I was too tough a sentencer in a particular circumstance. At least for me, the philosophy is very simple. Take a look at the crime. Take a look at the victims. Take a look at the law. And what does the law tell us about what should or shouldn't happen in that particular case? And then apply it fairly in order to ensure that there is a protection of all participants involved. Sometimes it's a restitution case. Sometimes it warrants a jail sentence. Sometimes it warrants a full jail sentence or a higher sentence outside of the guidelines. And it is that weighing process that you'll find as you go through, and I encourage you to come to the courts and take a look and listen to what we've been doing. I think you'll find that the weighing process from a philosophy standpoint is the most important piece in criminal sentencing.
My judicial philosophy, should I happen to get there, would be a somewhat moderate one. On the one hand, some things that, some minor crimes, I think can be dealt with through treatment and minor penalties. On the other hand, people who would harm our citizens, people who would abuse our children, those kinds of people, I think, need a different kind of treatment, and they need to be treated much more harshly under the circumstances to be sure that they're not around to harm our citizens ever again. And if I were to be elected to the bench, I would can't say what I would do in a particular case, but I can tell you that my philosophy would be that the people who need to be incarcerated and penalized would, of course, be incarcerated and penalized. Thank you.
I agree with my fellow judges that a philosophy is different than a policy. If you lock yourself in a policy, you lose the human factor that goes into sentencing in criminal cases. In addition to the public safety, and in addition to whether someone should be plain old-fashioned punished, what we need to take into consideration and what drives my philosophy is personal responsibility.
As everyone's indicated, it's a balance. It's a balancing test that has to be looked at by the facts and circumstances that are in front of you, the facts of the crime, the facts of the individual that is appearing as a defendant in front of you. There has to be certainly accountability. There has to be punishment in terms, but there also has to be an effort to make sure that there is recidivism stops, that the individuals don't come back into the community. And there has to be some of that taken into account when it's appropriate and other things can be done so that you can turn that around so that they're not coming back as repeat offenders, that's an important part that's got to be taken into consideration when you look at the big picture. And every case deserves to have that big picture seen.
I'm Judicial, president with the Anne Arundel County Center. No one heard that? All right. Apparently, yeah, good call. J.P. Solid, president with Anne Arundel Republicans. All right, so 5 questions. This is number 5. Might be a doozy. You guys want a break? All right. Okay. Please describe how you view the role of a judge in society, particularly here in Anne Arundel County, in light of its large, diverse population.
What was that in Anne Arundel County, whether you're a judge or a member of the bar, lawyers take a hit. There's no doubt about it. Sometimes well-deserved. There's not a day that would go by as an attorney that you didn't hear a lawyer joke, and it usually involves the shark and the bottom feeder and things like that. It's important as a judge here in Anne Arundel County, as well as throughout the state, that the judges that you have sitting on the bench believe in a couple things. One of them is honesty and integrity. My reputation, I'd like to believe in my public service to the community shows my integrity and my reputation for honesty and fairness. More importantly, however, in Anne Arundel County, unlike many other jurisdictions, because we are a large, small county, it's important that you have judges that are involved in the community, and when they become judges, stay involved in the community. I've been a piece of the community in a variety of different ways, whether it was involved in sports activities or Marley. I do Marley Middle School, where I participate as a mentor for students that would otherwise find themselves in front of us. The philosophy or the thought process in terms of what judges should do in society here in Anne Arundel County is to stay involved. People need to know their judges, and their judges need to come from their community.
I didn't hear that question. Could you do that again for me? I'm already acting like a judge. See?
Please describe how you view the role of a judge in society, particularly here in Anne Arundel County, in light of its large, diverse population.
I think the biggest thing that a judge does, and I think it's extremely important, is that a judge makes sure that every single person that comes before them gets a fair shake. It's generally their only time in court, their only day in court, and their only opportunity to bring their problem to the attention of the court. Whether it be a criminal case or whether it be a civil case, the thing that I'm going to strive for is to treat everybody, because we have such a diverse community, treat everybody equally. Everybody that steps foot in my courtroom will know that they're going to be treated fairly and equitably, regardless of race, creed, color, or any other circumstance. Thank you.
You know, a judge is almost democracy's most visible symbol to the average citizen. I sometimes address the jury pools in the morning that come in to sit and be assigned during the day. And I say to them all the time, there are people throughout the world who have died and would die for the right to be tried by a jury or a judge who is being fair and impartial, not simply finding a party line of whoever's in charge of the government. It's that ability to stay open-minded, that ability to let everyone feel that they are treated fairly and are heard, that supports the very basis of our democratic system. And I see my role as a judge to promote that each and every day, that I put on that black robe that's way too hot and get out there and do the work. Thank you.
I agree that in the courtroom, there's a role, and that role is to be fair, and that role is to be impartial and be that referee and treat everyone with respect and make sure that everyone has a right to be heard. But coupled with that is that role in society, which I think the question is kind of touching on, which is to be that role model out and about, to make sure that when people are in your courtroom, they leave with that good impression of the judges here in Anne Arundel County, that they go out and talk about that you can be a role model for the young students, to bring them in the courtroom and get familiar with the system and the people that are a part of it, so it's not an unhappy or unpleasant place to have to be or to have that view as. I also agree that as judges, we have to remain in the community. I'm not a politician, I'm new to all of these things and going out and doing all these functions, but I tell you, we've met some wonderful people that I would have not have normally met. I plan on staying involved in several of these organizations and communities, and that has been something that I think is crucial to continue, so that you never lose sight of the people that you're there protecting.
I agree that judges have to continue to be involved in the community, and as Judge McCormick indicated, I'm also not a politician. I've jokingly said to a couple people tonight, through this process, I've found my inner extrovert, so I have been able to come out and speak when I never would have been able to do this a few years ago. But as far as the judge's role in the courtroom, the professional role of a judge, I see a judge as a problem solver in both criminal and civil cases. In criminal cases, you either have the situation where a crime has been committed or somebody's been wrongfully accused of a crime. The judge's job in that situation is to determine on a fair basis and be fair and determine what exactly the situation is, and then address the problem. In a civil case, when people come to you in a civil case, it's because they have not been able to resolve their problems themselves. There are all kinds of vehicles through the court system, alternative dispute resolution, which encourage people to solve their problems. By the time they get to my courtroom, they have not been able to solve their problems. So as the judge, I am tasked with solving the problems for them.
Thank the candidates. We're doing really well on time, so I appreciate you sticking to the time that we have allotted for you. We do have a good group of questions here, so we're going to dive right in. This is one of the audience questions. Do you believe that all citizens have adequate access to legal help and the legal system? And if not, what can be done to provide wider and better access?
I think that the system can always be improved. Almost every system can always be improved. There are circumstances. We have the Public Defender's Office, which does a great job defending the criminal defendants, but a lot of times in the civil arena, there are people that have legitimate claims that they want to pursue. They don't get the opportunity to do that. For whatever reason, they can't get a civil attorney to represent their interests on the particular circumstance, and sometimes it's hard, especially in the civil arena, to get somebody to help you. Those people that make enough money to get past the requirements of the Public Defender's Office, but don't make enough money to pay a civil attorney or a criminal attorney, there's gaps in the system, and the gaps need to be filled. And we need to do a better job of educating the public as to what resources we have available so that they can get the legal assistance that they need in a myriad of cases.
We do have an excellent public defender system and wonderful public defenders in Anne Arundel County handling the criminal side of things. The answer in this day and age is not necessarily to throw money and new resources at the civil side of things. For example, you can think outside the box and being very creative. We have a wonderful self-help center in the Bar Library in Anne Arundel County, where every day when I walk through that library, there are dozens of people there with the volunteer lawyers helping them deal with their paperwork, what kinds of pleadings they have to file, and get the ball rolling for them for whatever kind of legal matter they have. That kind of creative thinking, reaching into the community for more volunteerism, is probably the way to pump up that side of things, and that's what we need.
Well, I agree that we have a great public defender's office. It's definitely overworked and understaffed. I mean, there certainly is financial restrictions on that and budgetary restrictions, and they could certainly use some extra resources there. With regard to the self-help, we do have wonderful programs in Anne Arundel County, but it's not sufficient yet. But I think it's incumbent on the attorneys that are in Anne Arundel County to step up and volunteer and be more involved in those self-help programs, because they're there. They just need the extra staffing on the civil arena to make a difference.
I agree. I have litigants come into my courtroom every day, and they don't have any clue as to what's going to happen, why we're there. They've been told to show up. They have no idea what's going to happen next. I think there are wonderful programs available. I do think that they're understaffed, but I also think that a lot of the parties do not even know that they exist. So I'm consistently recommending to people that when you leave here, you didn't file the right thing, this is from the right proceeding, go from here, go to the third floor, go to the pro bono legal clinic, they'll help you. And I think we need to get the message out in the communities before they get to the courthouse, and that doesn't seem to be happening. So I think that even just through literature and just in libraries and post offices and everywhere, we could just get the word out a little more earlier in the process, and it would be helpful to the litigants.
The economic circumstances, not only here in Anne Arundel County, but throughout the state and the country, have resulted in a number of individuals who might otherwise have gone to an attorney come to court and try to represent themselves. Many of the cases that we hear, certainly on the civil side, that's not the first or the last time you're going to see an individual. So when they come into court, the attorneys, I think, themselves try to do as good a job as they can. You heard a little earlier, Anne Arundel County Bar Association runs a law day. Some of you have not only participated in it, but have been students in our law day. It's an opportunity for us as judges and lawyers, as part of the legal profession, to provide free assistance to individuals who are looking to handle matters that may not necessarily need the same level of a high-powered attorney with small matters. The other thing is that as judges, each one of us has on our bench the referral to the Anne Arundel County Bar Association's lawyer referral system. It's an opportunity to go talk to somebody, at least to vet your case a little bit and to get a better understanding of what they might need. And in addition to that, that opportunity then to not only use the pro bono clinic, but also to be willing to point them in the right direction. As judges, we can no longer assist them in the advocating of their case, but we can also level the playing field in some respect when they are in front of us.
Representing District 32 on the Central Committee, thank you so much for being here tonight. For the judges and for our audience, I have the next question from our audience, and it concerns the Constitution of Maryland. Since law schools do not teach the Constitution of Maryland, what formal constitutional training have you acquired to ensure that laws and our judicial decisions are constitutional rather than perceived? Take a stab at that. The circumstances are that when a judge makes a decision, of course, they don't just make decisions willy-nilly. They make sure that the issue is properly researched, it's properly investigated, it's properly briefed, so that if an issue comes before them that involves some kind of interpretation of the Maryland Constitution, there's not going to be a decision made until the judge and his or her staff has made the appropriate research and done the proper inquiry into what the problem might be. Whether or not they're teaching the Maryland Constitution in the law schools nowadays, I can't address, but I can tell you that I think every judge that sits on the bench and everybody who aspires to be a judge that sits on the bench is going to do everything they can to make sure that any decision that they make is in compliance with the Constitution, both the state Constitution and the federal Constitution.
When I was in law school in the 1970s, we of course had a course in federal constitutional law. And I recognized back then that wasn't enough just to be a lawyer to practice in Maryland. I was always a student of history, and I always read. I was like like so many, a poli-sci major in college with an interest in history and American history. And part and parcel of that is to simply open the books and read your state constitution and read the federal constitution. I, for 30 years, have had a pocket copy of the U.S. Constitution in my briefcase. It's always there. And you need to be a student of history to put things in context. We have a Court of Appeals that tells us trial judges how they interpret the state constitution and how we are to apply those interpretations to our cases every day. It is not our job to be creative and to try to reach our own interpretation of constitutional law or to legislate in any way in order to do that. We need to take the law as the Court of Appeals tells us to apply it and apply it to the work we do.
Therein lies the benefit of the appellate background, because you have you have cases throughout the country that interpret that Constitution, and right here in Maryland, which tells the courts and the judges how to apply that law. So it's the ability to find those cases, to understand those cases, to review those cases, to apply the law as set forth in those cases, interpreting the Constitution to the facts in front of you, and to do that analysis that becomes important so that the Constitution is in there, the guidelines are in there through the case law, and that's what needs to be applied.
When I was a law clerk 30 years ago, I clerked for the Court of Appeals, and that is a certiorari court. That's a court that only takes cases that they want to hear. They take about 150 cases a year, and they have thousands of applications for those cases. Many of the cases that they take are for interpretation of Maryland constitutional provisions or matters that they believe are public policy. So I had significant experience with those issues during my clerkship. Now, having said that, that was 30 years ago, and I certainly would never rely on that today. As the other judges have indicated, and Mr. House indicated, any judges, when you're faced with an issue of interpretation like that, interpretation of any kind of constitutional provision, you are going to do the research and have your law clerks back you up on that research to make sure that you interpret it properly and currently.
On the front end, once an individual is selected as a judge, they put you through a training program that is more than 100 hours of handling exactly the question that you've had, which is, what are we doing to make sure that we understand the law? When each one of us takes an oath, we take that oath to uphold the Constitution. You can't uphold something that you don't understand. So the continued legal education that judges go through in and of itself is the first piece. The second piece of that is beyond the opportunity to participate in the classes. Actually, Judge Clemens and I are heading to one tomorrow morning. It's an ongoing learning opportunity. If you're a lifelong learner, and anybody who knows me knows I love the law. I love the commas and the periods, and whether you chose an and or an or, it's a big part of why I did what I did as a legislator. That's the piece for me that allows me, as I'm sitting on the bench, to understand what the law was supposed to be. In many cases, it was a law that either I was involved with as a legislator, or I've had that opportunity to hear the analysis, and more importantly, to hear the debate, to know what the individuals meant when, in fact, they were creating a particular law.
Thank you so much. It's a little short for me, sorry. All right, the last question from the audience today is one that's kind of a hot button question. So hopefully this will be something all of you can touch on. Mental illness left untreated is becoming more and more visible in the news. What treatments or solutions are being discussed to help those in the legal system, both in criminal cases and otherwise, with mental illness?
I think that this country, not just Anne Arundel County, but this country in general, has a big problem with mental health issues. And I think it's, as you've heard some of the presidential candidates discuss, it's a big drain on not only our economy, but it's a big contributor to the criminal justice system. It's very, very important to get people that have genuine, bona fide mental health issues the treatment that they need. Not necessarily incarcerating everybody who's commits some kind of a crime that has a legitimate basis for some kind of mental health, but channeling them into the resources that we have, and there's more and more resources available, and Of course, the funds are limited, but we could always do better. But to get people the help that they need, if we do that, and we make a concerted effort to do that, we will probably have a corresponding reduction in crime. We'll probably make life better for the rest of us out here that aren't suffering with mental health issues. And I think that it's a very important issue for the court to address.
The legislature and the courts have tried to address this question with the system that's in place in our courts under the health article of the Maryland Code, which we shorthand by the section numbers we call 8505, 8507. That's an evaluation for mental health treatment, and then a treatment plan that we can put in place when appropriate, when someone is evaluated to be properly needed of drug and to some extent mental health treatment as well. In addition to my other responsibilities at the court, I'm the judge in charge of the juvenile courts. And I oversee the various magistrates that handle both the delinquency cases and also the children in need of assistance cases. And I'm seeing a growing problem at earlier ages with mental health issues. And I don't know that we are yet to the point that we've put in the juvenile system the kinds of resources and programs needed to address mental health issues, and we're kicking that can down the road and then dealing with it both with the attendant additional crime and behavior until they're adults in the adult system as well.
In district court, we have a mental health court that deals with some of these cases and grabs them early on and do some things in that. With circuit court, we don't have that. What we do have, though, is judges' ability early on to see mental health issues and to try to kind of grab them and take control of them early on. Sometimes in instances, I had a preliminary, an initial appearance the other day where you had someone who was clearly suffering from mental health issues that we were able to go ahead and do a competency evaluation. I've got calls from attorneys who, on both sides, to say we have this issue and we need to get things moving to get competency evaluations. Psychological evaluations are necessary at the beginning stages before we even get into the merits of the case. Once the case is completed, there's no question that mental health issue goes hand in hand with substance abuse, that a lot of mental health people are self-medicating with drugs and alcohol and things of that nature, and those things have to be addressed together as a whole. There's creative ways in sentencing to do that. There's certainly ways to fashion sentences to ensure that individuals maintain in mental health programs as well as substance abuse programs, to get testing done, to require medication in some circumstances. So there are things that judges can put their hands on and make a difference. You're not going to get them all, but you can certainly do what you can.
Through the court system, as the other two judges have indicated, there are assessors, substance abuse assessors. There also, the court has the ability to order mental health evaluations in certain cases, in civil as well as criminal. And in sentencing, prior to sentencing, a court can, on 8507, a court can have an evaluation done to determine whether treatment would be better than incarceration. I don't want to repeat what everyone else has said, but that certainly everybody in our society is fully aware of the fact that mental health and drug issues, and which are related and are crossover, are the primary reason that people end up in the court. And anything that we can do, particularly in the juvenile realm, which is a deficit right now, anything that we can do to improve the ability for the courts to get in early and cut these problems off at the pass and get these individuals the treatment they need is what needs to be done.
The magistrate one of the last they've talked a lot about the criminal side, and we forget a little bit about the civil side. 90% of the cases, you heard Judge Schaefer mention that there's more than 30% of the cases that are family law in nature. Well, family law also includes domestic violence. Family law also includes juvenile matters. Family law also includes that inability to negotiate or to work with one another that brings them into court. So the three things that are being discussed, and the question is what's being discussed. In Arundel County on the juvenile level, we used to have a juvenile drug court. That opportunity to deal with them and handle them at a very young age so that they're not 30 years old or 40 years old beginning to get treatment. I agree, Judge McCormick, that it goes hand in hand with one another, substance abuse and mental health. So we're looking at and hoping to be able to bring that back to courts. The other thing is the recognition of a new problem, particularly here in Arundel County, and that is with our returning veterans. and the opportunity to address in a very comprehensive method a veterans court. There are other jurisdictions that have done that. Anne Arundel County is in the process of our conversation with that. I'm very proud to be able to be a part of, hopefully, the front end of Anne Arundel County's veterans court. Very quick. For 26 years, I've been an attorney here in my community, and the citizens of Anne Arundel County have trusted me enough to bring their most delicate of cases and matters before me. For 16 years, you've trusted me to be your legislator, to be the person that you called when you were having problems, whatever the issue may have been, from the pickup of your trash to how to negotiate through the Anne Arundel County codes and systems that we have here that create the fabric of what we do on a day-to-day basis. What I'm asking you to do now is to trust me as a judge. You've had that opportunity. There's nothing about me that you don't know. You've listened, you've looked, you've seen schedules, you've seen votes, you've seen every opportunity that one might be able to have to know what you could know about Kathy Vitale. More importantly than that, in order to even have that privilege to stand here, there was an entire process that we all went through where they looked at attorney grievance issues. They looked to see whether or not you were found fit as an attorney. They looked to see whether or not you had a criminal background or fiduciary problems and things of that nature. I'd like to ask you again to trust me with, one more time, your most important sensitive issues, but to do it this time as a circuit court judge. So I'd ask for your vote on the 26th of April to allow Kathy Vitale to continue to serve you in this capacity.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. A circuit court judge requires the requisite temperament, intellect, and experience. 29 years of trying cases, I certainly have the experience that's necessary. When I was in practice, I would sometimes get clients who would come in who would have what I consider to be a very routine case, a very simple case legally with not a lot of complex issues. And I would remind myself when they came in that even though to me the case was very routine, to the client it was anything but routine. It was one of the most important events in their lives. And so I reminded myself and I treated each case as if it was my only case. I've carried that philosophy over to the bench. And I'll tell you the same thing that I told Governor Hogan when he interviewed me. I will treat every case that comes before me as if it is the only case that I'm ever going to hear, and it will have my undivided attention. So I ask you to vote for me and the other 3 sitting judges on April 26th to allow us to continue to represent and serve the citizens of Anne Arundel County. Thank you.
As Judge Vitale mentioned, there's a process that goes into this where to become a sitting judge. We are here before you, 4 of us, because we have gone through that process. It's an extensive process. It's an application process that's long. It's meeting with committees from every bar association and throughout the state, and the Maryland State Bar Association, the Women's Bar Association, Monumental Bar, the list goes on, and then meeting with a commission of 13 individuals who interviewed us, made recommendations, and sent our names up to the governor. I was fortunate to have an interview with Governor Hogan and sit down, and when we talked, the question was, what do I bring to the table that's unique? And one is the experience, the appellate experience. I've practiced in every single court level, district court, circuit court, court of special appeals, and court of appeals. I have over 20 cases in the highest court in Maryland. But more importantly, I told him I bring a balance. I bring a different perspective. I was a criminal defense attorney married to a police officer for 20 years. I had conversations at the dinner table about, fairness and balance and things that is unique, and want to continue to do that. I think balance is a key to a good circuit court judge, and I'm asking you to vote for me as well as the other sitting judges to continue.
Not just anybody should be a circuit court judge. Imagine for a minute there was an election to choose your heart surgeon, the person who was going to do bypass surgery for you. Who would you vote for? You'd vote for the doctor who had the most technical expertise to perform the procedure and who could remain cool, calm, and collected if something went wrong. I practiced law for 37 years. I had the background and wide range of technical expertise, as does each of these other sitting judges. We have the confidence and endorsement of Governor Hogan to continue in that job. And so we ask for your support on the primary election day, April 26th.
One of your readers wrote in and they said that they hoped that somebody would pose the question to me, why am I running? And I'd like to point out that in the beginning of the evening, the sitting judges pointed out to you that they've all been vetted by the subordinate bar associations. They've been approved by the Maryland State Bar Association and so forth. Well, so have I. I've been through that process a couple of times, and I've been vetted by the subordinate bar associations and recommended or approved by the Maryland State Bar Association. The problem is that the trial court's nominating commission, for whatever reason, won't send my name forward. Is it because I was a police officer, they don't want an ex-police officer on the bench? I don't know what their reason is. They act in some respects like a star chamber. So the law has a mechanism for people like me who have been through all that process and paid all those dues, but somehow didn't make it for the final list or the governor's consideration. And I might point out to you that the governor could not consider me because my name didn't get past the trial court's nominating commission. So I'm challenging the sitting judges for the purpose of letting the voters decide whether or not they want a man of my temperament on the bench. Thank you.